first off, you're limited on what division you're going to shoot. So you look at what you're really into. Is going to limit on what you can do. On any gun, if you hand me any gun, a Glock or anything, and tell me I got to shoot that, the two things that I'll probably change if I can are the sights and the trigger. You know, that's the main. Everything else, most everything else, other than maybe some grip modifications, are superficial. But having sights, having a set of sights with a wider, deeper rear notch, where you have a lot of daylight around the front sight, that lets you see faster when you're shooting 4, 5, 6 shots a second. It makes a big difference. The trigger, though, the trigger might be the most important. It's a difference between a 7-pound trigger and a 3 or 4 pound trigger. It's going to make a lot of difference in how accurate and even how fast you can shoot. So, you know, probably the most restrictive division is IPSC production division if you shoot a Glock, and that's what I shot, and that's actually what I won the last World Shoot with. But I really don't like that. It's some of the reason I'm not shooting that anymore. Is there's very little you can do to the trigger. The trigger's still got to be over 5 pounds, and it really does handicap a Glock versus CZs and Tanfoglios and things like that. I don't think that's quite fair, but it is the way it is. So that's the most restricted division. And then if you get in limited or whatnot, you can really do anything to the trigger that you want. I recommend not doing anything that's going to hinge on reliability. I mean, I could definitely have my triggers lighter than what they are, but then they're might not be the most consistent. So I do some things with the springs and change some things up. Nothing too drastic. You know, change the sights. Lighter recoil spring is a big thing. Typically lets the gun shoot a little flatter. Can actually make the gun a little more reliable depending on the loads that you shoot, and make manipulating it better. Shooting limited, shooting a Glock major caliber, putting some weight on the gun, you know, a tungsten guide rod or a Magwell or a Seattle Slug actually will help. You know, it's most guys that shoot what I'm shooting standard and limited right now are shooting a $2,000 or $3,000 STI that weighs 40 some ounces, and you're trying to compete with a Glock. So, you know, there's these things that we want to do to you know, I'm trying to stay competitive at the highest level. But you know, but bottom line is, you know, you want to know your gear and you want to know what you can do, by all means. Once you get it figured out, then stop tinkering with it. Then worry about you and the shooter. And a lot of people, they never get past that. They always are looking for the next gadget that is gonna, they think that is gonna get them to the next level. When in reality, it's, you know, it's the Indian, not the arrow.